Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing great, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about taking action. One of the biggest things that we find hard to do is to start something or to know what to do next. And if you've ever had that feeling of stuckness or stagnation or a real sense of frustration at having tried a few different things but you're not yet seeing any different results, then hopefully you might understand this, because I have a whole lot of experience in this and have come to notice a few different things which have been of use to me and might be of use to you. So you might be familiar with that quote from Henry Ford, which is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I really like that, but I'd like to modify it just slightly into, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've already got. So it's not just a case of getting what you've always got, but everything that you've already done, you've already got it. So well done, you've got the t-shirt, you've done that. But if we want to get something different, then the challenge is we've got to do different and act different. And of course, we've got to think different. Now, all of those are things that are really straightforward and logical and make a lot of sense, but they can be sometimes hard to put into practice. And from my own experience, I found about 4 different things which I think can sometimes get in the way, and maybe some of these might resonate with you. So the first one is patterns. Patterns of behavior, patterns of ways of doing things, but also patterns of thinking. And when we try to challenge ourselves to do something different, we really come right up against that safety aspect. Even things that we know we don't like, they're comfortable to us, they're predictable to us. We have a blueprint for them. We know that we'll do this and then we'll do that and we'll get that result, even if we don't like the result. When we want to try and shift things and do things differently, that can be scary because there is no blueprint. And we need to face into that and understand that sometimes those patterns and ways of doing things that maybe have got us many different results or many achievements, they might have got us to here, but they might not be the things that get us to there, wherever there may be. Then the second thing is about our identity. And this is so powerful. Asking ourselves questions like, who am I? And importantly, who am I not? What do I do? And what do I not do? I'm sure we could all finish that sentence of, I'm the person who X, Y, and Z. Or perhaps I'm the person who doesn't or who never X, Y, and Z. And it's that story that we tell ourselves. And I always think that the most important story is the one we tell ourselves about ourselves. So that can be one of the biggest challenges, really. Then we have fear of failure, fear of the wrong decision. Of course, we don't know what a wrong decision might be, and we probably have lots and lots of evidence of having made many important decisions in the past, which we wouldn't necessarily consider to be wrong. Or even if they were wrong, they still took us somewhere. They still resulted in something that then we could take further decisions on. Sometimes it's worth asking myself, I know, that is it a fear of failure? Or could it be a fear of success? Because if I'm successful at doing something, what might that mean about me? What might that mean about how other people view me? What might that mean about what I need to continue doing if I have some success in some areas? So that's a useful one. And then a fourth one that I find really powerful, and I had to check myself in on so many times, is this perceived state of confusion. This story that we tell ourselves that we don't know what we need to do. And, you know, one of the things that I've come to realize, usually from a lot of reading of Stoic philosophy, is that confusion is actually a voluntary, imposed state of indecision. No, it's voluntary because it's a choice. Not making a decision is a choice. Not taking action is a choice. Staying in a state of confusion, or taking something which is clear and just unraveling it slightly in order to allow ourselves to be confused, is a choice. So how do we change these things? How have I been trying to work on shifting, breaking these patterns and slightly amending or changing my identity or creating a new identity for myself? Well, of course, it's about doing different and acting different and thinking different, isn't it? But let's start with the thoughts, because our thoughts create our actions. And if it's about patterns, then what I've come to realize is that I've got to get super forensic about noticing and understanding those patterns, really dialing up my self-awareness and making a conscious effort to understand what it is I'm doing and how it is I'm thinking, rather, in certain moments that then produce a certain way of being. And the kind of tools that I found really helpful for that are journaling and meditation. I really like journaling because when you have to write something in full sentences, which I do, it slows down the thought process for me, because you can't write as quickly as you can think. So you've got to slow it down and create full thoughts and allow a thought to come to an end and then create another thought. And I find that a very helpful way when there's loads of stuff happening in my brain that I'm trying to understand, of articulating it and then of noticing it very consciously. The next thing is to try and switch the input. So there's probably loads of stuff that we're just absorbing all the time from our environment. And one of the key ways of doing that might be to look at your social media feed. So about actively changing what we consume. So it doesn't have to be anything radical. For example, I follow the law of attraction on Facebook, which I find really fantastic for giving just insightful, thought-provoking snippets to help me challenge my thinking and notice where I might be slipping back into old patterns or opportunities to try things differently. It doesn't have to be all serious. The other thing that I follow is Dodo, because I happen to love videos of unlikely friendships between a wallaby and a turkey, this kind of thing. Actually just brings me a lot of joy, and that positivity is a really important thing, I think, in when we're trying to build a courage and a strong identity about ourselves in order to do things that we haven't done before. Then it's about generating our own content. I find affirmations really helpful for trying to switch the different pathways in my brain and trying to remind myself that the things that I want to think differently about and to do differently about. And if you repeat something often enough to yourself, then you can find yourselves reminding yourself of that in those particular moments when you have opportunities to either shift something differently, or perhaps you've only noticed it afterwards, which is also brilliant, because noticing it at any point in time is fantastic to being able to make change. And I also find gratitudes really, really helpful. Gratitude writing and saying things that we're grateful for, thankful for, that can really boil it down to actually there's a huge amount that I am brilliant at, or that I am thankful for, because those gratitudes can be about things you have. They can also be about ways of being that we recognize in ourselves and that we pat ourselves on the back for, because that's fantastic too. Then we're shifting into doing differently, and that's about taking different action and how we can expand our comfort zone, because the most mind-blowing thing that I've come across recently is that comfort zone, it is not fixed. You can literally push your comfort zone every step of the way, right? So when we're dancing on the edge of the comfort zone, if you dance there long enough, all of a sudden you realize that actually the edge of your comfort zone is now a few steps forward. And that's all we need to do, is just keep taking a few steps, because you can fill an entire bath one drip at a time. We don't have to be doing huge, overly courageous things in order to slowly and gradually shift our own perception of ourselves and act on our own courage. And the last thing is, speak up about the things that you're doing, the things that you're trying. Speak to other people, put it out there. It doesn't have to be in grand ways, but just start talking to others. And I found that people are really generous with their time. And you never know what contacts people might have, or even just simple things that people say that challenge us to see a different side or a different perspective. And that can be really inspirational in a really small way. It doesn't need to be over-egged. So I hope that's been helpful. These are all things that the reason I've noticed them is because I've been practicing them. And I say practice because it continues to be a practice. But I have found that these things have been helpful for me in being able to check myself, clarify what I want, and then try to take the steps that will nudge me in the next direction that I want to go in.